Hey everybody, welcome. I'm Cindy Daychek with Queen Bee Creations, and we're going to be working on this little cabinet. Now, I thrifted this for $9, so that was after the 30% seniors discount. But a couple of things about this. One, this doesn't close. So the first thing that you do if it doesn't close is you try and see if you can adjust the screws to make it, but it is not going to work. So I do have my sander out, and I am going to start with an 80 grit sandpaper. I'm not going to put you through listening to that, but I am going to sand the top and the side until I get good closure. And because I'm going to want to paint the edges, I want to make sure that I've got room for that paint. Okay. And to bear in mind, I'm going to paint these edges, but I'm going to paint this inside rim. I'm not necessarily at this stage thinking I'm painting the inside of the cabinet, but now that I've opened this, you can probably see the other thing wrong with it. There's no backing to it. So what I did do was I went into my stash and I found this old little panel door that I had in the back that came out of somebody's cottage. And I'm going to cut that down to size to fit in the back and then just nail it in afterward. What I will do is once I get this painted out, I will repaint this at least. So when you open the cabinet, you've got a nice clean looking surface. Does that make sense? But I love that this is unpainted. This is just raw wood. So it leaves a lot of things open for us and allows me to show you a couple of little things that you might not think of for finishing. So to get started, I'm just going to start sanding this down, which is going to take a bit because it's not fitting by a lot, by a fair bit, not a huge amount, but enough that it'll take a bit of sanding. And then I'm going to take the knobs off. They're just wooden knobs. I'm not sure what the final look of this piece will be, so I have the option of painting them out later or adding new knobs. So I'm just going to take them off and go with it, and we'll see. So first step, sanding and then dusting it all off before we move to the next. All right, so we've got this working, and it didn't take as much, but it turned out that I also needed to repair the drawer, which I had never pulled it out fully, was falling apart and didn't slide nicely. So I sanded this a little bit. Slides great here, gets a little stiff toward the back, still works. I don't want people pulling it all the way out anyway. Now, where I want to go with this, because it's raw wood, I figured we would do some paint staining. Oh, got to get in a comfortable position for these old bones. And by that, everybody always thinks about staining with the furniture stains. And I mean, and I have some lovely stain and finishing oils by Fusion. They're all going to be in the natural kind of woodish tones. Some a little gray, some a little pine. We're going to use paint. Now, this color is Walk on Water by DIY. Know that you can do this same thing with any paint. In essence, all that we're doing, I'm going to put a little bit of water in my container to start. We're just creating a wash. And rather than layering the wash over a painted surface, we're going to layer our wash over raw wood. And that, in essence, then stains the wood. Now, DIY paint is one of the most heavily pigmented paints on the market, which makes it excellent as a wood stain. You can dilute it up to 10 parts water. And in fact, the raw wood frame of my desk at the front, for those of you that have been able to come into the shop, that was using Bohemian Blue, and I used 12 parts water because I wanted to do it lightly and then build up the color. So I did 2 coats, and I've never sealed it, and it's still perfect. I wanted to start with a strong color. You could do this in a pale color, your project, your color choice. And I'm just going to use a chip brush. But all we're going to do is take that really watery paint And we are going to paint the surface with that wash. And it's going to seep into that dry wood. Now I'm going to take a cloth and I'm going to wipe it back. Well, I guess I'm doing the sides now since I dribbled. And that's now stained my wood. That's just colored my wood. I wasn't going to do the sides, but I am now because I dribbled my paint down the side. Isn't that often the way that some of these things go, right? It's like, well, I wasn't planning on it, but the project determined that now that's what I'm doing. Now I could leave that wash on there if I wanted, right, to deepen the tone. And I'm likely going to do that. I'm kind of looking at the color. Look at that color on the edge versus that color at the front. I'm going to want it deeper. So you can do multiple light coats, apply it and let it sink in, or apply it and wipe it back. Your choice, depending upon where you're going with it, how you want it to look. I'm now deciding I like that deeper color because I know where I'm going with it. And I want that darker color underneath. Man, this is a beautiful color. Okay. I hadn't used it before and I decided, perfect project to do this. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to paint that wash on there and I'm going to let it dry. Now, it's going to soak in. So as much as when it's wet, it looks pretty deep and dark, that wood is dry and it is thirsty. So it is going to lighten up, and DIY paint lightens anyway, but it will just naturally lighten because that wood's going to soak it all up. So we're going to set that off to the side to dry. I love that color. Okay. And now I just have the rest of it to do. So I'm just going to get this all painted out, let it dry overnight because, again, it's really wetting that wood because it's so watery and because that wood's so dry. But we're going to get this all on there, let it soak in, let it dry overnight, and then we'll take a look at what it looks like then. Super easy. Here's our little cabinet painted out. And you can see the door swings just fine. This paint that I use, DIY paint, dries lighter. Let me show you. It dries lighter than when it's wet. So I just dip my finger into water. So you can see that color comes back when you seal it. What I am thinking of, and I had a number of different thoughts about this, but what I have decided, and now I'm going, I think I'm probably sitting on my brush, maybe. No, it's on top. All right, I had it. I am going to just seal it with wax. And rather than it just being white wax, I'm going to, clear wax, I'm going to seal it with white wax and probably a bit of, just sitting that way on concrete was killing my knees. And probably a bit of a combination. I have a rag that I'm going to use to wipe it back, but I want it to be a little bit softer colored than it is. So what this means is I am going to coat it fully with my white wax. And remember, this is unsealed, so that wood is still pretty absorbent. And while it's wet, I'm going to wipe it back. What we get is, look at this soft drifting. You can see the wood pattern through it. I'm going to have details in the creases where that white is going to sit lower. So it's going to stay in those creases and almost outline those drawers and you know, the detailing. So we'll have those white lines showing because it's going to sit in those lows. But we're going to be softening this color out. I have the clear wax to use as, you know, an extra kind of lubricant, softener. If I get too much white wax in an area, I can kind of use it. Sometimes we describe it as an eraser, but because this wood is still open and porous, once I apply this white wax, I'm never going to get it gone, right? So be sure of this, because all of this is still open. The paint is open, the wood is open, nothing's been sealed. So that white is gonna stay. So this versus this makes it far more interesting. It's going to seal it. I'll be able to buff it up tomorrow if I want. You don't have to. This particular piece has wood knots. You can see that big blob that's showing. It's got some cracks. It's got some little gouges. This white wax is going to sit down in all of those. So this little section that I'm doing, there's a gouge off of it. Bit of a scar, if you will. Can you see? And the white wax is just going to sit down in there, so that now that becomes an interesting feature, as opposed to, you know, that was a mistake. And then I can just leave that off to the side to dry. And I think this is going to make it just kind of a softer look, but an interesting, little bit more interesting look. I still have to cut the piece for the back, and I have a bit of an idea of what I'm going to do for that, rather than painting it. So here I'm trying to get that white wax into all of those grooves. So I'm using a chip brush that helps me to be able to get it down in there, rather than ruining a good brush. And I'm going to want to wipe that back a bit before all of my uneven, crazy brush strokes outside of where I'm doing it kind of takes hold. But you see what I'm saying about being able to get that white sitting down into all of those details. So you just have to flip around your cloth a little bit here and there when you need to. Getting white wax all over me, which is really typical because I'm always sitting on the floor. I'm sanding or I'm waxing or painting. That's why I have no good clothes, or why you see me in the same t-shirts all the time. There's only so many I want to destroy at any one given time. Just makes sense. So let me get this door done, and then you can have a comparison with the rest of the piece. You just want to make sure that any rough sections where you feel like you can kind of see a wipe mark or brush stroke is gone before you let your wax dry. But you can see how this now becomes a softer look. It's kind of drifting. You've got the details around there to be able to highlight. We're going to have it in this framing around it as well. And it's just going to soften it out and make it a little bit cuter. I'm hoping that maybe in my stash, I have some little white porcelain knobs instead of those wood knobs. And maybe we'll get a chance to use those. But nice, simple little finish and something a little different than just painting it out, because now we still get to see all of the wood grain that's happening in it, which if I painted, I would have lost. This is the board that I have cut down for the back of our little cabinet. Now, the one side was kind of that creamy white, but I want to decoupage on this. So this side of the tongue and groove paneling is flat. The other side has the indent. So I think it'll be better because it'll be smooth. So what I am going to do is I'm just going to get this painted out in a couple of coats of white, just as a good foundation. I'm just using Casement by Fusion, but just as a good foundation for the decoupage paper, just so that I don't have that dark brown echoing up through it. I have the white so that my paper is going to be, the image is just going to be a little cleaner, a little bit pure. So I'm going to get this on and get this dry before we can start looking at doing a little decoupaging. This is dried now, so we're ready for the next step. I think it's important to know that decoupaging a pattern or a paper onto this is, first of all, because the wood was not nice looking wood. Could I have painted it all white and left it in there? Yes, but it would have looked a little bit weird with the natural wood that's still remaining in there, because I'm not planning on painting that out. If you wanted, you could have painted all the interior white, painted this white. That would be consistent. That would work. I couldn't. Oh, sorry. Thought that was somebody at the door. I couldn't finish this the same way as the external part of the little cabinet, because it was a totally different wood, right? This isn't going to look the same as that raw, light colored wood that we started with for the remainder of it. So it had to have a different treatment right from the get-go. And it makes more sense to do something that's going to tie in with the rest of the piece. So what I did do was I took a look at my paper stash. So you could have gone a couple of ways. I mean, you could paint this all white and then you could do a whole stamp, maybe a colored stamp in the paint, the walk on water paint. So it's in the same tones as the outside. You could have done maybe some of the IOD transfers all over this. But this is a really inexpensive piece, and I'm certainly not going to be charging a lot of money for it. And that's one of the reasons then that what I've elected to do is to decoupage on wrapping paper. One, easily found. Two, very affordable. And three, it's going to be one long continuous piece. So I'm not going to have to be piecing it together like I might smaller pieces of paper. So I just kind of like you to know some of the thought processes behind some of the choices that I make in things. And I think that that was an important one. Now with this, what I am going to do, and I'm just using Mod Podge because it's open. I have used many other decoupage mediums. So many are great. Don't fret over this. Just because this is what I'm using for this, it's only because it's open. And if I don't use it up, it's going to dry up. And I'm cheap that way. Now I did see a big lump come out. I'm going to put that off to the side. So for this process, and this is the, oh, see, it's got a bunch of lumps because it's already getting old. So we're going to take those out as we go. What I am going to do is do one smooth coverage of it, end to end. And I'm doing it fairly thick because I'm going to leave this to dry. I'm not going to apply my paper until it's dry. And I like to use this method when I am doing like maybe the inside backings of china cabinets and things like that, when I can take the backing off and I can finish it this way, just because I tend to get the smoothest kind of wrinkle-free coverage this way. So many of you, I mean, there's so many different decoupage techniques that you can use. And, you know, if you've got a method other than this that you love, that works for you every time, go for that, right? I'm not saying that this is the only method I use. I'm not saying it's the best. I'm saying for this particular project, this is the method I've had the most success with. Oh, that Mod Podge is just got lumps like crazy. And this has already got enough bumps. I don't need to be adding more to it. There we go. We'll just work them all out. So all I want to do is have nice coverage, nice smooth coverage. I want to make sure I get it right. Now I've got a brush here. Oh, okay. Just keeping it real. Stuff's going on. And I just want to get this nice. I want to get it smooth. And I want to have enough on it that when I go to re-engage that, another brush here, when I go to re-engage it, that there's going to be enough glue on there that it's going to adhere my paper down. So with this method, we're not doing anything yet. We're just getting this end to end so that everything stays adhered everywhere. And I'm going to leave it to dry. And there we go. I'm going to go wash off my brush and I'm going to go clean off this rim because I think that's what's causing me grief. As things turned out, this had overnight to dry. Wasn't my intention, and I'm just looking for where my paper went. Okay, wasn't my intention. But, you know, life. Things got busy here in the shop. It just dried and that was it. So we get to, I don't think it'll be a problem, quite honestly. You want to have your decoupage medium dry. Now, I'm going to be using some wrapping paper. And I've cut this bigger than I need because once it's on there, it's going to be dead easy to just cut away the excess. And I'm lining up this edge so that's just one fewer edge lines to have to cut away. But because this is going to get nailed into the back, there's edging, it's all going to be good. Now, the only other thing that you need is an iron, and I have a little shop iron heating up over here, and a piece of parchment. So you want to iron your paper, which the heat will then reactivate the glue. The iron keeps it all nice and flat, keeps it from wrinkling. And the parchment paper keeps your iron nice and clean. So that's the reason for the parchment paper. And all that we're going to do is slowly, just looking for where my drop-off point is just slowly heat this up. And let me do this corner and we'll just see. So this isn't something that you race through, and you want your iron to have no water in it. We're not using steam, we're just using the heat. And I've got this little baby on the highest heat it will go. The cool thing about this is just a little travel iron from Hamilton Beach. This handle swirls around so you could travel with it. I don't travel with it. I just use it in the shop, but you can see stuck. That's sticking. So perfectly okay to let it dry overnight before you do this. So I'm going to get the rest of this stuck down and then let it cool off. So you don't want it to still be hot and then try and lift it, but I'm just working from one kind of edge to the upper edge, and I'm just going to get it all down. It'll be nice and flat. Perfect. Now, just figured that while I was still here ironing, I might as well talk about sealing. Once this is cool, I will look to seal it. Now, if I just took my decoupage medium, whatever it is, whatever liquid medium I was using, and I just brush it on, then odds are I'm going to start stretching my paper again. So what I like to do is just take a spray polyacrylic. There's no magic to what brand, whatever you have, but I use an aerosol spray can, and I do 3 to 4 really light coats. So what I'm doing is creating protection on the surface, but also if it's something that I do want to add additional liquid top coat with a brush, then I'm creating a bit of a barrier so that not as much of that seeps in and saturates my paper, and therefore it allows it to stay nice and flat still. So just know before I hammer this in place, I will do that sealing process because the back of the cabinet, I don't think it's as urgent to do as many coats of a sealer as I would if this was the front of a dresser, right? If it was the front of a drawer or something, where it's going to get banged up a little bit more. I mean, you can see, look at how perfectly smooth. You guys can't see very well. Look at, see how smooth that is? Awesome, right? I've got one little wrinkle there. I'm just going to iron my wrinkle out. And then I'm going to leave this to dry, cut away the excess, seal her up, and it's good to hammer in place. Yep, that little wrinkle's gone now. See? I love this method. Here's our little finished cabinet. Now, I chose to use these porcelain knobs that have just a tiny little bit of worn metal center. I did have these porcelain knobs, but they were substantially bigger and they stuck out a lot further, and they just seemed like they were going to look a little too heavy or too, too much for it, even though they were so white. I also have, and you can see I get these baggies from on the thrift store walls. I also had these porcelain knobs, but the gold on it just seemed like you were introducing another element. It was too bright, it was too shiny, it was too new. So not perfect for this little table, this little worn kind of brass center. It's patinaed, I think really suited it best. You can see that you can still see the knots in the piece. You can see any of the little dings or scratches. The white wax really highlights that, which I like about this piece, right? But we also have, we can also see all the grain as well. And that's a difference with not painting this, but doing a paint stain. The paint is so watered down that we're staining the wood with it, but we're allowing the grain to show through and finishing it off with the white wax softened that paint color. On the inside, of course, we've got our lovely backing that we did our decoupage on, and that piece of wrapping paper with the various blue tones, kind of nice and cheerful, kind of fits in with a little bit of that softer sort of beachy washed look of the cabinet. So really with this, what I wanted to show more than anything else, I mean, if you haven't done the iron-on decoupage technique, it's the one that I recommend anytime that I'm doing a backing, especially something large like for a big hutch or something, when you're doing the inside of that. If you can take the back off, paint it out, and be able to iron on your decoupage, you're going to get such a nice, smooth finish, no wrinkles on it. That's really going to help that have just such a nice finished look to the piece, especially for a furniture piece. As well, the applying a spray acrylic to it before you would add any other protection just helps to be able to seal that paper without a lot of wrinkling or rippling as well. So I hope that you picked up a couple of tips along the way on this one. Turned out super cute. It's nothing particularly outrageous or wild, but definitely a couple of little techniques that I'd want you to bear in mind, because staining doesn't always mean that we have to use a specific wood stain in the browns or the blacks. We can stain in any color paint that you've got on your shelf. And I hope that kind of opens up a whole new scope of possibilities when you're looking at some of your furniture. Let me know what you think of this one, guys. I love to hear from you, and definitely looking forward to seeing you on the next one. Until then, take care.